Okay, Emma, what's the second tip you've got for us today, please?
Right, this kind of fits in a little bit with the talk cubes, and it's this idea of stop. Now, when I was in my last school where I was the head, and I was a class teacher there, and then went kind of deputy head assistant head teacher, we had this thing called stop, and we used it right from foundation all the way to year 6, and it was this expectation across the school that the children would be responsible for their own learning. So if at any point during the teaching they didn't understand what we were on about, it was their responsibility to stop us and ask us what we meant. So obviously you'd caveat it with sometimes you'd be introducing the lesson and you'd go, right, don't say stop just yet. I know you don't know because I haven't told you what we're doing. But you would create this culture in your classroom whereby the onus was on them understanding what you were saying. And it's amazing how many children would say stop. And to get around the novelty factor of everybody going stop, they had to say where they got lost. So they'd say, stop, I understood it up to where you put that 7. I don't know where the 8 comes from. And so they would have to articulate where they got a bit lost. It was so powerful, and it worked right the way through from foundation up to year 6. And it got round that bit where you send all the children off to do their independent work, and there's 4 children who go, I don't get it. And you're thinking, why didn't you tell me you don't get it? And also it helped for those children who potentially were a bit more introverted, because those confident children would say, I don't know where you got that 6 from. And then all of a sudden you'd see lots of little eyes light up and you'd think, oh, they didn't know either. You know, they didn't know where the 6 came from. So you would explain it again. And then once that culture of it's okay to be wrong, or it's okay not to know, it's okay to stop the teacher, it was great. And it also made you aware of where children's gaps in their understanding, where misconceptions were coming from, where they kind of were just getting in a complete ravel. You go, oh, I know why you think that, or why you don't think that. And it made your teaching stronger as well. Occasionally there would be a group of children who you're thinking, I know you're not going to get this at all. So you would speak to them at the beginning and say, don't worry, I'm going to be working with you in a few minutes. We're just going to set this lot off, and then I'm going to call and work. Don't panic if you don't know. You don't need to stop me. We're going to come and do some special work. Just us in our little gang. But it was just such a powerful model for the whole school, and they loved it, and the children loved that they were in charge of their own learning. It was an incredibly effective model.
It's really nice. I love this. So the first thing I wrote down immediately was, you could imagine the kids saying stop straight away. But as you say, it's almost like I'm picturing almost kind of a bit of a stop amnesty where you can't say it for a certain amount of time until it kicks in. That feels like it's an important part of that. I like that. And then the other thing is, and again you've answered this as well, the fact that it's not just, you could imagine some characters I've taught in the past just wanted to stop me mid-flow anyway, so just shouting stop. But the fact that they've then got to articulate exactly where in the point they've kind of got confused, that feels like it's kind of guaranteeing that extra buy-in, so they take it a bit seriously, but also helping them communicate. That feels like it's a really important part of this as well.
And the other thing was you draw in from the other children. You say, okay, so, you know, Rita says she's stuck, or she doesn't understand where the 6 came from. Can anybody else explain where this has come from? So you'd kind of bounce it back to the class as well. So you're drawing in all of the rest of the class. You're not just having this kind of tennis conversation with one child then. You're actually pulling in the thinking of other people. And what happened, especially in my year 6 class, was somebody would say, stop, I don't know where the 8 came from. And before I could even open my mouth, somebody else would have jumped in and go, oh, I know why you're thinking that. I thought that, but then I realised it was from over this side, or, you know, it was that side of the triangle, whatever it was. And they would sort of bounce it around the room themselves a little bit, with me kind of intervening when I needed to. So it was still kind of direct teaching, but they were listening very much more to the contributions of others and reflecting on where they were in their learning and supporting the rest of the class with their contributions as well.
God, it's incredible, this, Emma. Final question on this. I mean, I've often stated you could not pay me to teach primary, particularly younger years. I will be so out my depth, it's not even funny. The fact that you're saying that this, I was right in hearing you saying this can be from kind of foundation age right up to kind of year 6. Any difference in how this would work with, like, you know, 4 or 5-year-olds versus 10 and 11-year-olds, or is it pretty much the same?
It was pretty much the same. You find a young child who doesn't want to tell you what they do and don't know. You know, they're really, really articulate. They will say, "I don't understand why." That's just a natural predisposition for young children, is to want to know why, and they'll tell you, "I don't get it, I don't understand it." With the younger children, obviously, there's a little bit more caveating of, okay, we're going to listen for a couple of minutes and then I'm going to ask you, if you don't understand it, this is where we'd say stop, can we go over it again? So there was a gradual build-up of it, but it was completely embedded across the whole school. And it as I say, it builds on the children's natural dispositions to want to ask why, or to tell you that they don't know things. And if you build that, it has to be part of a wider culture, but if you build that culture in your school, it's hugely powerful. And a bit discombobulating as a teacher when you first start to do it. You mean, what do you mean you don't understand it? I am a gift teaching. Of course you understand. This explanation can't be anything but perfect. I spent ages crafting it. What do you mean you don't get it? So there is kind of a little bit of realisation that maybe your explanation wasn't so great, or maybe you hadn't pitched it appropriately. So it's a bit of a wake-up call as a teacher. It can be a bit wrong-footing, but hugely developmental as a teacher to think, actually, I didn't break that down enough. I didn't do it in small enough steps. I had assumed wrongly a particular level of prior knowledge. So yeah, I really like it, and I talk about it with all of my cohorts.
I think it's lovely. One more bonus question on that's just sprung to mind. This is always the advantage of speaking to primary colleagues, the fact that obviously you teach a range of subjects. Did this work better or worse in maths versus anything else? And was there any subjects where the stops tended to becoming more frequent than other subjects? Was there any variation at all across subjects?
Not really. It was more of the type of stops that you do. So in maths, it was most of the time fairly procedural. I don't know why the 8 goes there. I don't know where you got the 11 from. With things like RE or history, it was kind of, I don't understand why. So why did they think like that, or what? They didn't necessarily understand the wider context things, or they didn't understand people's motivation, or how things were different. It was still that they were stopping you because they wanted to know more or understand more or be able to do more, but it was dependent. It was kind of subject dependent in terms of the types of questions they were asking, rather than the frequency of them stopping you. Much easier in maths, I must say, to provide the answers.
That's what I like to hear.